Hey guys, welcome. I'm Annie and this is Historically Fashioned. Today is going to be the first video in a series of videos where I plan on looking at some of the garments in my extant garment collection. So I thought for today we would start by looking at the simplest garments I have, which are Victorian Edwardian era guimpes. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what a guimpe is an old French word that originally referred to a veil or a wimple, but it evolved, and I'm not quite sure how, evolved into talking about a high-necked garment that was worn under a low-necked garment that was actually meant to be seen. So it would fill in the lower cut neckline of that garment. So that's what we're going to look at today. I did want to note that I am handling these garments without gloves. Most of them are in pretty good condition. One of them is a bit more fragile, but I am handling them without gloves. Don't worry, my hands have been washed and I have them on acid-free tissue paper on my table. I think that is all I have to say for the intro. I will not ramble this time, so let's go ahead and take a look at these garments. Okay, so let's start by looking at the simplest guimpe that I have in my collection. This one is just a fairly stiff cotton netting that has bound armholes and a collar attached. So let's start here by looking at the collar. Here we can see that it is just a fairly simple collar. Again, it's just a simple cotton netting. I definitely do think this is cotton just based on the feel of it. And we have the neck edge, top edge turned under with the raw edge having been bound in a very, very stiff tape. And then it is attached to the main body with this really pretty decorative stitch here. Nothing fancy going on in the shoulder seams. Here they are here. I believe these are probably French seams. They feel like a French seam. We'll look at them a little closer when we get inside. And then here is the armhole. And here you can really see just how stiff this is. It does not like to bend. I can't imagine actually wearing this. Now, I don't know if it was always this stiff or if that is a function of its age. I am not sure, but it is super stiff. You can see I can't even like straighten it out down here. It's got like a permanent kink in it. Here we can see that we've got the side seam. And the hem, again, is just that same turned under. We've got the raw edge covered with the tape, and then it's turned under. And I'm not sure if you can see, well, we'll see it. We'll look at it in the inside, how it's stitched down. So that's basically it for the front. It is basically just a square shape with the shape of the arm's eye cut out. When we turn it on to look at the back, I think that this one is a bit later just because this one actually does close with snaps and it only closes here at the top. So along the neckline, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 snaps right here, right at the collar. And then we have 2 snaps here, just the top edge to just close that. And then the rest of it is left free. Now, I don't see evidence of any stitching showing that there was at one time any more snaps than that. I think that is just all there was. Here we can see the collar stays. Most of these do have collar stays in them just to keep your collar upright so it wasn't wilty and fadey. They were originally covered in silk usually, and here we can see where most of that silk has worn away and we just have the bare metal. Here we can see the little receiving side of the snap on the other side, and we can get a look at these seams. Yeah, these look like they are definitely a French seam. So both the shoulder seams and the very, very, very short side seams are just, you know, a French seam. So I think that is it for this bodice or guimpe. Like I said, this one is very simple. Let's move on to look at guimpe number 2. Okay, so GIMP number 2 is still very, very simple in its construction. Basically the same kind of construction. We have a front piece and a back piece with arm's eyes scooped out. But as you can see, this one is definitely a bit more ornate. Again, it is made out of cotton netting, but I think this is a finer cotton. It is certainly less stiff than the other one. Actually, this one, I don't know. I think it's cotton. It could possibly be silk, but I think it's cotton. So this netting here, and it actually is 2 different types of netting. We'll get a closer look at those in a moment. It's of course joined at the shoulder seams and it has the collar. So starting again at the collar, we can start to see these 2 different types of netting. Here you can see that there is a very, very narrow row of lace right here along the top neck edge. We'll talk about these brown spots here in just a few moments when we get to the back. It has a giant hole right here. I think this one was worn quite a lot. And you can just see showing through, we do have some collar stays in this one as well. It's joined to the main body with a seam. I think that may again be a French seam. Whatever it is definitely finished. It may be felled. And then here you can see that larger hold mesh continues down. Here we can see the cotton crocheted, filet crochet decoration. And it's very interesting to me the way this is sewn on. I don't know if this has just gotten a crease over time, but it looks like it was sewn on with a little extra room, and that allowed it to get this kind of crease in it. And the center you can see is joined with a seam as well. And down here when you get to the bottom, this has come unstitched, so you can see that we have the 2 layers here of the coarser net over the finer net there. The way this is sewn on to the bodice, the filet crochet, is with very, very large running stitches. I'm not sure if you can see them, but they are quite large right along the edge here, and obviously the insides are left loose. Moving over to the armholes here, the arm's eye, it looks like this was originally just got a very, very narrow rolled hem along the armholes and also along the hemline where it is really tattered and really started to come undone. And there are some very large holes in this one as well. Let's go ahead and turn this over because there's some interesting things on this. All right, so this one is closed with hooks and eyes, which leads me to think that this is maybe a little bit earlier than the other one. So again, starting up here, we can see those collar stays. Here you can really see the bare metal where that silk has gone away. And we have the row of hooks on this side, the right side, and the row of bars down the left side. We have a continuation of that filet crochet lace coming down the side or coming down the backs. And we also have a continuation of that heavier net here. Now, I said earlier that there was something interesting about this when we see those brown spots on this lace or on this gimp. Now, if we look very closely right here, you can just see that there are 2 bronze colored beads right there. I don't know if my camera will focus on them, but you can just kind of see the flash right there. I don't think it wants to focus on them that close because I do not have a macro lens. So that leads me to believe that all of these brown spots here originally had beads. And you know, I just noticed this after looking at this so many times. It looks like this collar actually has, the way the net is made, we have the heavier mesh, and then we have a really pretty lace pattern right here, and then we have another pattern here, and then ends in a kind of scallop, really pretty lace edge. So I just noticed that. Interesting. Yeah, I think that's really all I have to say about this one. I think this one was probably early 1900s. The last one I would guess was probably, I don't know, maybe around 1905 to 1910-ish. I think this one might be just a little bit earlier, but that's just, again, my best approximate guess. So yes, let's move on to Guimpe number 3. Okay, looking at Guimpe number 3, I'm using the term Guimpe loosely for this one because I'm not sure that this one originally started out as a Guimpe. You can see this one has much more ornate lace on it, but it does not actually have a high collar, which leads me to believe this, along with this waistband down here, it leads me to believe that this was originally attached to something else and someone took it off either to wear it just as it is, or I'm not sure why they would do that, but they did it, and here we are. So let's go ahead and look at this one a little more closely. So this one obviously is a bit more ornate. We have a lower neckline here, still not low by any means, but it definitely is a kind of scoop neck here. Again, we have this very, very fine netting. Now this is the finest netting out of any of them that I've shown you, and it's really the finest netting out of any of the Guimpes in my collection. I believe this is actually a silk net just based on the way it feels. Very, very, very fine. The top edge is just rolled under and hemmed. You can just see where it looks like they may have covered it, or there may have been some lace attached there at one time. Or either that or they just used that lace to cover the edge. I am not 100% sure. So moving on to looking at the actual construction of this garment, we have the layer of very fine netting, and over that we have this really beautiful, beautiful lace. So the way the lace is laid out, we have this really pretty kind of, I want to say kind of almost a keyhole neckline. I'm not sure what you would call that. And then you have, see, a little bit more here where it's very pretty. And then I don't know, I love this motif. It's absolutely gorgeous. You can just make out the shoulder seam here. And again, we have a very, very deep armscye that goes down here. And we have the seam here. Looking at the waist, you can see this is actually attached to Petersham, and you can see all these black threads. So this was definitely at some point attached to something else. As beautiful as the front is, let's go ahead and look at the back and the inside. So looking at the back, you can see this one closes with, again, snaps running down the back. This one does have snaps all the way down the back until you get to the waist area, the Petersham, which is held by hooks and eyes, so that that part that's under tension will actually stay closed. And then we have these two really large black snaps on this one. It's odd to me that they're only on this side, and I don't think that these are original. I mean, they could be given all of this black thread. I don't know. And they have been on here for quite some time because that black thread is definitely faded quite a bit. You can see on the inside here, there is, looks like maybe we've got a couple of seams here. I don't know if maybe the Petersham was too small. I'm not sure, but it's herringbone stitched down, which is really nice. And then moving over here, we can actually see that there is a label in this. So this is maybe, I don't know what that first letter is, honestly. A G, it could be an F, it could be a T, something ERDES, gowns. This is in St. Louis on, maybe, what's that, 20th Street in St. Louis. So I'm not sure why we have this here, honestly, looking at it, because we have this same kind of detailing with the Pettersham here, where they have added a piece there. I don't know if that was just for more strength or stability or what, but there we have it. What I find really interesting about this actually is that on the left side here, we can just see that there used to be, well, that there were bust darts here coming out from the arm's eye. On the other side, on the right side, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but there are actually some holes there where you can see where that dart was originally. So I think that's very interesting. Looking at the shoulder seams, you can see that they look like they are probably a French seam. Yes, I'm going to guess that that's probably a French seam. And the arm's eye here is just turned under and finished with a very, very narrow rolled hem. So I think that does it for Guimpe, not a Guimpe number 3, and let's go ahead and look at number 4. Alrighty then, let's look at the 4th and final Guimpe in my collection, and you can see right away that this one is very different because this one actually has sleeves and it is not made up almost completely of netting. This one is actually made up of a very fine cotton. If I had to guess, I would say it is either voile, however you want to say that, or a very fine cotton lawn or muslin. So let's zoom in a little bit here and get a closer look. So you can see that the collar, the yokes, the lower edges of the sleeve are all made up of 2 layers of this net. If I had to guess, I would say that this is probably cotton netting. It is 2 layers, the top layer being embroidered and the bottom layer just being a plain netting. We have the collar here that is attached. We'll look at the inside there in a minute. And it has this bronze colored silk ribbon running right along the edge to add a nice accent, maybe to match whatever gown it was wearing, being worn with, and also probably to protect the inside edge there a little bit and make it a little more comfortable for the wearer. Again, we have a shoulder seam on this one, and this one is a bit more complicated before having sleeves. We'll look at that again in just a second. We do have a shoulder seam here, and the lace continues over onto the back yoke as well. So the I guess embroidered net, not lace, the embroidered net is made up of a pretty floral and dot pattern. And here, if we zoom in a little bit closer, you can see that this embroidered edge anyways, it may even be both edges, are actually stitched on the outside of the Guimpe. And then here is this beautiful fine cotton. You can just see right through it. It is absolutely beautiful. We've just got a basic kind of shape here for the front. But this one does have more pieces than the others. So here you can see that the waistline is gathered into just by turning under the edge here like one normally would and inserting a drawstring. And it's actually fairly short, so this probably ended right at the natural waist. Moving on to the sleeves, you can see that the sleeves here are actually attached with top stitching. I don't know, let's see, can you see there is the edge of the front fabric and here's the stitching, and you can see that the sleeve is inserted that way. And then we have the cotton coming down. It looks like it is a one piece, well, more than one piece, and we'll get to that in a minute, but the main body of the sleeve is a one-piece sleeve with the underarm seam coming down the back of the arm here. You can see it's here, and we do have some signs of wear right here under the arm. Coming down, moving down the sleeve here, you'll see that it comes to about maybe elbow length, just above the elbow. And we have, again, this main part of the sleeve is stopped, and we have a seam right here. Let's see if that will focus. We've got a seam And then we have this second part of the sleeve, which is again that cotton that is then attached to the 2 layers of netting. Again, we have the embroidered net on top and the plain net on the inside. At the bottom of the sleeve, you can see this really beautiful, what I think is cotton lace, here attached at the cuff. And you can see that the cuff, it was turned under right here, and the lace was stitched on in the inside, I think. Oh, well, maybe not. Actually, it looks like it was stitched onto the netting and then it was turned under. I think so. Yes. So we have the netting. We would stitch the lace on like this, turn it under, and then turn it under again for that finished seam on the inside. The lace here at this cuff is really nice. Somehow delicate, yet also hardy at the same time. I'm not sure how they do that. It's lovely. Anyways, moving along to the side of this garment, I'm not going to turn it quite over yet because we have something interesting that I wanted to show you. On this side, we just have a regular seam. So here's the front panel. Here is the back panel. On the other side though, so I think the left side, it looks like they had to do, excuse me, a little bit of piecing. Luckily this is in great condition, so I can kind of manhandle a little, but they had to do a little piecing. They ran out of fabric, and you can see that they have inserted just a piece right here and stitched that in with, I think they have used, well, interestingly enough, they have used a French seam on one side and not a French seam on the other side. So that's really interesting. Let's look at the back. All right, so let's look at the back and inside of this Guimpe. So here we can see the kind of bronze silk ribbon here, and it is just whipped down with fairly large stitches, and it also has a long running stitch running through it. We can also see those ubiquitous collar stays that were of course originally covered in silk. Where the collar meets the main body of the Guimpe, we can see that it is covered with what looks like a linen tape. Looking along the back, we have again the bars here on the left side, and we have the hooks over here on the right side. The edges here are just turned under and stitched down, so we have a nice clean finish. Of course, the way they assembled the netting portions, it looks like they stitched them like one normally would. Wrong sides together, turn them right side out, and we have this very nice clean finished edge here along the collar as well as the yoke. Looking inside where the yoke meets the main body of the fabric, you can see that because that netting is on the outside, on the inside what they did was just turn this under and finish it that way, and then lay that net over the top and stitch it down. Here we can see in better detail these seams over here that are kind of strange. If we look at the arm's eye, you can see that those look like they were just put in there and then whipped over the edge. We do definitely have some fraying, but it hasn't frayed as much as I would expect after all of these years. And it's definitely seen wear, we know that. Here we can see that strange seam again. This side here is just stitched, and I don't see any whipping over the edge, so this one was actually just stitched in, and this one is actually finished nicely. I'm not sure why they would choose to do that, but there we have it. Here we can see the edge of the tie. I think this was probably just a shoelace or a corset lace that they commandeered to be the waist tie in this Guimpe. So we still have the metal aglet on that side. The other side is actually long gone and started to fray. So I think that is everything on this particular Guimpe. Yeah, that's it. So that is my Guimpe collection. All right, so that is all four of the Guimpes that I do have in my collection. I hope you did enjoy today's video. If you did, please go ahead and hit that like button. If you'd like to see more content like this, where I explore the garments that I do have in my care, and possibly even see some of my antique fashion magazines. I do have quite an extensive collection of delineator magazines from the late 1890s into the very, very early 1900s. And I do even have a few bound volumes of Godey's late ladies magazines that I plan to explore. So if you'd like to see those as well as some sewing vlogs, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Next to that subscribe button, there is a little bell icon. If you ring that bell, you should be notified of all of my uploads here on YouTube. YouTube is a fickle kind of beast, and sometimes it does not do that. I think that's it for today. So thank you guys so much for hanging in there and watching this, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.